Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webcast, Automate the Discovery of Your Multi-Platform ETL Environment for Data Lineage. I'd like to start off by introducing a couple of our speakers today. Our first speaker is Sam Benedict, Vice President of Solution Strategy with Erwin Inc. Sam will be presenting a brief overview of the newly acquired enterprise data mapping solution from Analytics DS. In fact, Sam actually comes to Erwin from Analytics organization. Our second speaker is John Carter. John is a Director of Automation Engineering, also with Erwin Inc. John's actually going to be doing the deep dive into the specific use cases that we have developed to show how Erwin's enterprise mapping solution can automatically discover your multi-platform ETL environment for data lineage. You are, of course, listening to Robert Lutton from Santel Consultants. And if I can go to my next slide. Cool. So under the next 45 minutes, it is hoped that our viewers will come to understand the 3 W's of data lineage, i.e. where did it come from, where did it go, and what happened to it along the way. So with the introductions and the title covered, what I'd like to do is I'm going to pass control over to Sam to just bring us into the high-level view of the Erwin Enterprise Mapping offering. So Sam, do you want to take it away?
Yep. Hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
So today we're going to be talking about the industry's premier enterprise data mapping and governance automation platform. I'm going to take you through portions of this tool so that you get an idea and a sort of a perspective on where things are going to and from. And when we show the automation piece of this, you'll be able to put together, the components of the tool that are capturing the information, where that information is being housed, and sort of how everything comes together to give you an approach, a systematic approach to managing the data, the metadata, data mappings, and all of the things that are part of the integration lifecycle management process. Now, there is an overarching governance initiative that goes with everything that we do. But as you know, as part of governance itself, it's really about creating better visibility for the business, collaboration, automation, and things like data lineage that tell the story of the data, where it comes from, how it's changed along the way, and how does it end up on our reports in a way that we can trust it and we can drill back into the data and understand exactly how it's been transformed along the way. Now, there are use cases for today's presentation, and this one is specifically around the automation, automating the discovery of your multi-platform ETL environment for data lineage. Now, when we say multi-platform, you could have a single ETL platform, perhaps Informatica or Talend or DataStage, or you may have some legacy information that's kept in SSIS or others. But the idea here is that you don't have to rely on documentation that may not be accurate, or maybe it's out of date, or maybe you don't have any documentation at all. So our goal is to be able to automatically reverse engineer code so that we can discover all the metadata that crosses the entire landscape and how that all fits together and connects. We can search the catalog to understand the meaning, the lineage, technical terms, any of the transformations and derivations that happen, and of course, all of that as it relates to the critical metadata information. And we'll show how that all comes together to paint a picture and really increase the speed with which you can reach a good level of maturity for data governance. It'll help you gain a better understanding into the data movement process overall within your organization, because we provide the visualization of the full data lineage. And when we say full, we mean source to report, from the very inception of the data, whether it comes in through a source system or an extract, a flat file, or perhaps it's even getting in your copybooks and VSAM files into the environment, with the ability to bring everything into a central focus and understand what your data issues are and how to solve those systematically and in a way that's sustainable and repeatable. Now, there are other use cases here for this platform, and that could be anything from a data governance initiative where you're looking to capture all of your metadata, tie that back to your business glossary terms, and understand all of the lineage and impact analysis. A data migration effort, moving from, for example, one ERP system to a new ERP system. your data quality. Overall improvement of data quality starts with understanding where the quality is when it comes into the organization, and how we affect that quality as it flows through to our end state repositories. Regulatory and compliance audits, everything that we do in the tool is time stamped, so that once you're managing your enterprise, you can understand where everything came in, when it changed, who changed it, and an audit function becomes a quick report that you run on any given repository that shows you everything that happened from January 1 to December 31. So you're not going about cobbling together requirements, documents, and spreadsheets and trying to tell a story to an auditor that's missing many chapters. This will give you the complete story from end to end. This tool can also be used in mergers and acquisitions for scoping out, looking at metadata structures and all the different repositories that are being brought in, and developing a data strategy ahead of the time that the papers are signed, and understanding what are going to be the complications and where's the low-hanging fruit in terms of merging our data together. We also work with big data, so we have the ability to scan and import Hadoop file systems. We can generate out Pig, Python, Scoop, MapReduce, and a variety of other big data type codes, help organizations move their big data into the cloud on Azure, AWS, perhaps using a Snowflake DB. All those things are an option in terms of how we manage, including standard data warehousing for your existing data warehouse. You may have a long-standing data warehouse that you just don't have the right level of understanding or control over, or perhaps you want to make that more public, centralize it, and be able to share that information with members of the business in a way that allows them to further explore and understand how the data got there and how it's being moved through the organization and across the architecture. Testing and test automation are included in that, whether it's developing what we would call a pattern-based test case that's based on pattern-based code generation, which is a little bit about what we'll talk about today, or your more traditional test cases, linking up your mappings with the testing cases that you may be developing today in products like HP ALM. We have synchronization features that bring all of that together. Any IT modernization initiative can benefit from this tool. What you're going to see today is a key function of that, meaning we can understand or decode the past, sort of a data archaeology effort to make sure that everything's properly documented and well understood as we move to the newer technologies that may exist, or maybe it's a new platform, maybe it's a new ETL tool, but this tool can help you understand where the pitfalls are and where the benefits are before that transition starts to happen. Cloud migration and metadata-driven automation is all about what we do. This tool can install locally. It can be live in your cloud, in the Erwin cloud. It's got lots of options for install and a very small footprint relative to other applications, because we're dealing primarily in metadata. Now today, there are a lot of products within what we call the Erwin Edge approach, and that's the Erwin Data Governance Experience. We offer things like our data modeling tools, enterprise architecture, and business process modeling. But within Erwin DG, you're going to see that we have the automation framework. John will be showcasing those aspects of how we reverse engineer things like XML code from any of the modern ETL tools, and even many of the sunsetted ETL tools, and also how we can reverse engineer things like stored procedure code for documentation and lineage. I'm going to be giving you a quick overview of the Enterprise Mapping Manager, which will include our metadata catalog, where we store and enrich and version control metadata, and also our Mapping Manager, where we generate source to target mappings, either pulling those in from your existing spreadsheets, reverse engineering your XML code to document things, or creating those from scratch by dragging and dropping metadata and applying rules, along with reference data management that keeps everything under control and makes sure that we're following all of our validation constraints. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to show a little bit of our business user portal, which gives you a read-only view so that you can see everything that's transpiring within the IT department. You can give your users access to things like data lineage, impact analysis, the mappings, requirements, all sorts of things that are helpful in their day-to-day work. And it also helps eliminate the need for shadow IT with people storing things offline because they're afraid they won't be able to get to it later. So this makes everything centralized, published, and very controlled in the name of data governance. Of course, you'll see in the grayed out areas Erwin offers the Premier Data Modeler, which is the industry standard. You've also got a data governance product that allows you to multi-catalog business glossary. You've got policy management, rules management, and stewardship management, all of which can be joined together with the other components of the tool. For the sake of brevity today, we'll be covering, just a handful of those things. And then, of course, we have lifecycle management modules that include things like requirements management, test management, and release management. So every part of that system development lifecycle is covered. You've got great partners like Sandhill that offer a methodology around approaching data governance and approaching programs with an approach to get everything into the tool and documented, and then how to leverage that to increase your overall maturity in the data governance space, and even your speed and maturity in data migration and your day-to-day activities for release cycles. Now, the key solution overview, this is going to include the metadata manager. I'm going to talk about a little bit about reverse engineering data assets. Today, when I'm going through, I'm going to show you how we collect metadata. And then, of course, we'll talk about what lineage views look like and explore the meaning of the technical metadata a little bit. Then we'll go into the Erwin Mapping Manager, which will show you exactly how we house the mappings, what those things look like. John's going to show you the automated way to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the other methodologies for getting mappings into the product. And then, of course, our business user portal will show you the overview of the things that we publish. John's going to show that after he's documented things so that you can see sort of a before and after of what he's done with the code that he's reverse engineering. Now, the important part here is that that portal brings real business value in terms of people in marketing, finance, and other departments being able to understand how this project or any project is affecting the data that they can access, where it came from, how did it get on the report. All those questions can be answered in a way that's very user-friendly, easy to navigate, and it comes at no additional cost to your implementation of the product. So it's very easy to share that information and show the real value of the IT teams in a format that's user-friendly, non-threatening, and easy to navigate. Now I'm going to jump into, I'm going to exit out of here very briefly and jump into the Erwin Data Governance product. Now the Erwin Data Governance product, as mentioned, has a variety of different modules up here in this corner menu. Our resource management module is just about getting your role-based security, setting up your user roles, and making sure that if you have LDAP, you can do an import. You've got all sorts of options there for single sign-on. And today we're going to be talking about Metadata Manager and Mapping Manager. After that, we're going to hand off to John, who's going to go into this Erwin Automation, which is also known as CAT-FX, which stands for Code Automation Template Frameworks. Now, the automation piece, perhaps the most important, and creates immense value with very little time and resource involved. That's going to be the highlight of our demo. But before we go into that, we're going to show you a little bit around how we collect things in the back end so that when the data comes in, when we're reverse engineering and documenting things, you'll have a better feel for where they're excuse me, housed. I'm getting a little choked up here. One moment. I always get very emotional when I talk about the power of this tool. I'm just kidding. All right, so we've got our system catalog here. Very simply, we would hit New System to bring in a new system. That could be any sort of DBMS, whether it's DB2, SQL Server, Oracle, Netezza. We can scan the metadata out of just about any modern DBMS. Again, I mentioned we can pull in from mainframe, COBOL copybooks. All of your reporting structures are also fair game for import, so things like Tableau, Business Objects, Cognos, ClickView, everything that you might want to connect from a metadata perspective to show that end-to-end lineage, we can bring in. Now, I'm doing this on a laptop, so I don't have a way to connect to those sources and bring them in, but basically we would fill out this cursory information, the system name, what does everybody call it, what is it known as, and then, of course, is it a source, a target, a pass-through? We want to know a little bit about how it's being used from a business purpose, and then I would hit next. It will offer me a connection parameter, and once I connect to it, it'll pull back all the available tables in that environment. And that's important to know because sometimes we don't want to scan in every table. We may just need a subject area. For example, if we were using SAP, we may want only 5,000 of the 85,000 tables for the project that we happen to be mapping or what we want to maintain in the repository. So you've got that option. Once scanned in, it's going to show you everything at the environment level. Of course, here, you'll also see which tables are in the environment, so your data dictionary, the environment details, any documentation. You can also do impacts as a source or target across that environment, so you can see everything as it flows through the architecture. And then drilling down, you're going to see things like the DIM employee table here and all the columns within that table. Now, back at the top, this third-party customer files, if I right-click, we have the ability to rescan that metadata at any time. We call this Erwin DG the most connected platform on the market because we have connectors for so many technologies, and they're all included with your purchase. So you don't have to go nickel dime and do we need this connector or don't we? Everything you want to connect to, you'll be able to connect to. We're going to be able to scan that metadata, and then we can also put it on a schedule if we know, for example, a given source system renews or makes changes every third weekend of the month. We can pick that up on the following Monday. So there's a lot of features and functions here that make life easier, and they ensure that we're working with the most up-to-date metadata from our source systems and our target systems and reporting systems. Now, there's one portion here that says Edit Environment. I'm just going to click on this to show that we've got some sampling here of the different file types. So you see Excel, CSV, XMI. There's Erwin. Models that we can pull in, Access, JSON, DB2, MySQL, Netezza, all the way down to things like your big data types, Cloudera, Hortonworks, MapR. We also do many other connections that are not listed in this short drop down. And there's also an other category so that if you have homegrown applications or maybe reporting tools, there are thousands of those. Certainly if we had a drop down for that, it would wrap the screen many times. So you've got the ability to connect to everything and anything in your environment. Now, once it's connected in, you'll see this DIM employee table here. We've got the column listing. You've got table properties. There's also user-defined fields and timestamps on everything so that as your data stewards are working in here to enrich the data, we keep that enrichment and we version control the metadata as it flows in so that as the metadata changes, we archive the old version, keep the new version, and then highlight any of the changes. Now, if those changes affect any of the data mappings that have been created or reverse engineered into the tool will tell you which mappings are affected, and it will auto-update those and reversion those for you as well through what we call a synchronization feature, and that works for both your source and target metadata. Again, removing the cumbersome, time-consuming tasks of opening a spreadsheet, making a small change, resaving it with a new name and version, and then putting it back in a SharePoint folder. All of that goes away, and now you've got centralization and automation that make it much easier to keep your documentation in order, accurate, and displayed out to your business users. Now, if we come down just a little bit further, we're going to look at the employee key column. This column level detail is going to allow you to add things like data domains, your length, precision, and scale. The metadata is only as good as where you're scanning it from. So if you have systems that don't have a whole lot of information, that's fine. It can be enriched here in the tool by the data stewards. In some cases, you may have very robust metadata, and we're going to capture everything about it, including the flags and the business properties. Now, down a little further, you'll see we have a sensitive data indicator flag. This will give you the ability to highlight any of the information that you may have that's sensitive, things like credit card numbers, security clearance numbers, also things like certain claim codes that have to do with illnesses and ailments that are part of PHI and very highly restricted. And once you've selected those, in fact, there's an edit feature here. If I come in here, I can manually select which category that falls into. This drop down, by the way, is configured by you. So you might have severity 1 through 5 rather than PHI, PII, etc. Once those are defined, you can give a further definition of why it's sensitive, maybe a link back to your data policy or your governance officer, so that anyone dealing with the data, whether they're an employee or a contractor who's new to the environment, they're always going to understand what's sensitive, who to talk to about it, and how they should and should not use that data. So all of this comes with, again, the ability to create user-defined fields and all of the timestamps so that when we make a change, that change gets captured for audit purposes. Now, looking at all of this metadata, when it comes in, it's not associated with a mapping, it's just raw metadata. But once we create the mappings, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sample here, we can then see the lineage, because the tool will connect all the mappings to show every hop, every hop from source to target, every transformation and derivation that takes place, so that when you're surfing through, you'll be able to see exactly what's transformed, where it's transformed, and by whom. So this lineage view, if I hover over a certain T here for transformation, it's going to show me there's an L trim being applied as I come into this DIM employee department name node. And on the right-hand side, it's going to give me a handy summary of how many sources, targets, and pass-throughs, any of the technical properties for the node on which I'm selected, your business properties, transformations, there's that L trim, your valid values, extended properties, and of course, a legend to show us directionally which way we're traveling. Now, all of this, again, is dynamic. So if I change, for example, any of the target structure, let's say I rerouted and changed this to a new target, that would automatically update the lineage view so that anyone in the business that may be using this as a point of reference through the business portal will have up-to-the-minute information. And this is important when it comes to sustainable data governance, because if you don't have up-to-the-minute information, if it falls out, maybe you get busy and you forget to update it, the business people stop trusting it, they stop using it, and now you've failed your governance efforts. So it's important to have things dynamically updated and always spot on. Now, you've also got this impact analysis view, also generated directly off of the mappings. This will give you information about your sources and targets, how many times the employee key is used as a target or a source, and then also things like usage and business rules, source extract, SQL, and lookups. You can see that we have an other impact here, and if I click on other impacts, by the way, down below here are all the mappings associated with our direct impacts. Our other impacts, you can see down here below, I've got a lookup condition. It's actually a select statement that includes the employee key and also the DIM employee table. So if I ran this impact analysis on the table level, I would find this as well. And then, of course, I've got usage and business rules where I've got my mapping name here, and, of course, the employee key as the business rule. Now, all of this, of course, is built off of the mappings. So we're going to take a quick look at that before we hand over to John. The mapping repository is very simple. You've got all of your mappings grouped and categorized into folders. Each folder has a transformation folder, so we can build in all of our transformations or scan those directly out of our ETL tools and then associate those transformations with each and every project. And then at each project level, we can also create transformations that are very project specific. So if I have a rule that only applies to my warehouse, I can create it here. If I have a rule that applies to everything, I can create it at the top level and cascade it down. Now in the center screen, you're going to see all the mappings that are involved. Those with red locks means somebody's editing that and nobody else can go in and overwrite their changes. We can have multiple people working on a map at the same time and merge. There are functions for that. And if I right click here on the warehouse, you can see that I have the ability to create a new map from scratch. I can upload my legacy mappings from Excel spreadsheets, and I can also upload XML, which is what John's going to show us in just a moment. There are also many byproducts of this tool, including things like an integration status report that's going to give you the ability to see, where all your mappings are for your data warehouse project. You've got 52 total. How many are with my designer, approver, ETL developer, and tester? And how many are there total, complete, in progress, not started, or on hold for each individual, so that if there are on hold mappings, I can very quickly scroll down, identify the on hold mapping, understand who's assigned to that and why it's on hold. This one perhaps is on hold because there's no assignment. But if somebody puts something on hold, perhaps they went on vacation, or maybe they're overwhelmed, we need to know that as soon as possible so that we can reroute the work and make sure we're hitting our deadlines and our release cycles accurately. Now, other things we do here, there's an all projects or any project you can do with this report. Everything is exportable. And of course, everything, including the mappings, are version controlled. That includes your mappings, your metadata, your requirements documentation, your code sets. Version control is everywhere across the tool so that we don't have any churn or any mistakes when it comes to which is the latest and greatest document for our release cycle. On the right-hand side, you'll notice all of our metadata. This is the same exact metadata we had before. It's just in this viewer so that I can drag and drop. For example, if I were creating a mapping, I could use my control key, select the metadata I want, and drag that into a mapping. Now, very simply put, this is a way to group, categorize, and centralize all of your mappings. It makes everything searchable. It makes everything available to the viewing public to the extent that you want it to be. And it's a place to capture and document everything that we're reverse engineering for today's example. And John will show you how everything flows in and becomes a mapping. Now, a very quick look at a mapping here, and then we'll rapid hand over to John. What you're seeing on your screen, and I'm just going to expand that screen a little bit, is all of my target and source columns. Now, this is a select few columns, but we have a header menu here where you'll see that if I wanted to add things like length, precision, and scale, I could quickly select those, and it will give me all of the information from the back-end metadata. So it's going to auto-populate from the metadata, so we eliminate the opportunity for keystroke errors or copy-paste errors. We want our mappings as accurate as possible, and being able to add and subtract columns with a click of a mouse makes that much easier. Now, we've also got formats that allow us to establish, for example, if I'm an ETL developer, I may want a deeper level of information on my target and source columns, and I can set up a profile that gives me that. If I'm an analyst, I may want a very light view with my sources on the left and targets on the right. This tool allows everyone to work in a way that's comfortable and that they're used to. And then we can also publish the corporate standard so that even if people work in very different ways creating a mapping or updating a mapping, the rest of the corporation gets a standard governed view of that artifact every single time. Same columns, same order, same rules, same everything. Making it very easy to standardize without forcing people to try to do things the exact same way in an Excel spreadsheet. Anybody that's tried that knows that's sort of an act of futility. Now, we're at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to hand off to John. John is going to take you into the automation space, CAD effects. He'll be jumping around a little bit to an ETL tool and back, but as he navigates through, what you're going to understand is that we're capturing metadata and we're capturing mappings as documentation so that once that migration is complete, we will have a full set of documentation for whatever repository we like, leveraging the ETL that actually moved the data and transformed the data on its way into that repository. So physical data movement, all of it captured, 100% accurate with what's in the end state repository. All right, over to John.
Thank you, Sam. All right, so today's use case on automation is the business is calling with the report, right? The common occurrence. There's some issue with the data that they see on the report, and they don't trust where it came from or what happened to it. So, of course, we have to put a SWAT team together now. They need to know where did that data come from, where is it going to, and then what changed along the way. So now we're going to have to pull together all of our BI developers, all of our ETL developers, and SQL developers to go through and document all of this information to produce lineage reports, impact analysis, and transformation logic reports to provide back to the business to review for any concerns and for them to tell us whether it's right or wrong. Right? And so to accomplish this, of course, you know, we all get this panicked email from the business that says, hey, there's a problem with this report. This information looks incorrect, so we need to dig in. So instead of going through the process of having all hands on deck and digging through, I'm going to show how we can automate the process of documenting the existing reports in ETL to identify this lineage. Okay. So within the Edge platform, I do have a trial balance demo project. I've created it. You can see that it's empty. There are no mappings currently. And what I have is an export of that OBIE report. So this is the trial balance summary report, or report summary, sorry. I'm going to copy this path in here. And what we're going to do is right click on that project that organizes the mapping. And I'm going to select run template. This run template option will bring up the code automation template library, where we have all of the different automation templates that are installed within the instance. For this case, I'm going to select the OBIE folder, and this has my OBIE reverse engineer template. Right? So I'm going to provide this output file. Let me just paste that back in there so we can see that trial balance report summary export. We're going to provide that to that. And we can see that I have provided the source system environment names as well as the schema. Now, what this is going to do is going to pull up, it's going to tie to the metadata that is stored. And I didn't expand that. I'll expand that in a minute. But we can see that this HVEDW is stored within the metadata manager where I have scanned the OBIE MART database. All right, so now that this has been uploaded, I'm going to execute this cat. And what that's doing is it is processing that export of the OBIE report in order to produce a source to target mapping. So when I refresh the screen, we can see that trial balance demo now has one mapping created. And when we take a look at this mapping, we can see that, just a second, it'll generate here. All right, so we have the mapping. We can see that it has the sources from the OBIE MART, and any business rules will be documented from in there. Gives a graphical designer, gives a nice graphical representation of this mapping. We can see that the trial balance summary report has been created as a target. So all of the fields that will appear in the report are now the target, the eventual target of this mapping. And it passes through the framework that OBIE is storing and out to the actual MART where these data is pointing to or is sourced from, sorry. All right, so now that we have this, we can go to the mapping specification and we can run the nice lineage and impact analysis reports. I'm going to go to the target side of the map here, and we can see that my trial balance summary report is here. I'm going to run a table level lineage. So I do this by selecting from the table column or right click, run the lineage analyzer. I'm going to select the dual combined view, and I am going to restrict it to this project that we're working with. So we can run this lineage and impact analysis through the entire enterprise for display purposes. I'm going to run this. And we can now see that I have the business rules and the lineage documented from this OBIE report. We can see that it is loaded from 6 separate sources. And we can see that each one of these along the way has specific items. So we do know that from the email, we are focused on the period net. So if I select one of the items that has been scanned into the metadata system, it will pull up the list of columns within there. So I can drill down to a column level lineage. All right, so this is going to produce the same lineage diagram, but it is at a column level rather than a table level. So we'll see a linear impact here. We can see that the report is all the way on the target, all the way to the right, and that is being loaded from that intermediary step to the actual MART. And when we hover over the transformations, we can see any business rules that have been applied in the report itself. We can see that this is just a pass-through. It's referencing the name of the column in the previous one. For this hop, there is no business rule again. And then we come back and we can see that we're still not, excuse me, we still don't have any business rules applied. So from this report level, we can see that we have reverse engineered the OBIE report, but there is no business rules applied to report back to the customer. So now we need to dig deeper and actually go into the ETL that's loaded this. And in this case, I do have a set of Informatica jobs that happen to be populating that OBIE MART. I'll just open one of them up quickly. We can see that this is the standard XML format for an Informatica Power Center job. It identifies all of the sources, all of the targets, and the transformations that are applied within that mapping. All right, so I'm going to come back to that same project just for demonstration purposes. We can certainly organize these in many different manners. I'm going to select Run Template again, but this time I'm going to go to Informatica. So the Informatica Reverse Engineer cat will ask us the same concepts, right? Whereas our source environment, system environment, and schemas. I'm going to add the Informatica files, and I did not copy that. And copy this directory, we'll paste it up here. And we can see that those information, I'm going to select all of these different mappings as they are populating the disparate tables that were used within that report. And we'll upload all of these. We can see when we get the little status of done, then we can execute the cat. And what this is doing is it is processing that XML again to create the source to target mappings to represent the data movement within the Informatica ETL jobs. And it'll take just a few seconds to complete. There we go. And when I refresh the screen, now we'll see that there are now 9 mappings within here. They do match the naming conventions housed within the Informatica jobs that were there. However, we only ran 5. We can see that there were some maplets used within these Informatica jobs. So we are also tracking the lineage through the maplets themselves. And we can see that we have a nice representation of an Informatica mapping within a source to target mapping now. We can see the source table is being used. It's moving through some lookups and expressions. There's some more lookups before the update to the actual target table that is being updated. And this all does tie to the metadata that has been scanned from that OBIE MART database. We can see that all these tables do exist here, and that's how we're making that connection out there and providing the lineage. All right, so I'm just going to enhance this a little bit more, and I'm going to run that template one more time, except this time when I select the Informatica Reverse Engineer, I'm going to go a level deeper, and I'm going to add files from the SIL layer. So these SIL layer jobs are actually populating the source tables to the OBIE marked jobs. So when I upload these and execute this to get this lineage within the system, oh, of course, something went wrong. Let me just refresh and try that one more time. All right, Informatica, add files, we'll get the SIL layer. And of course, okay, that's all again, okay. The demonstration will still go with the OBIE layer. All right, so we have this layer now. So I'm gonna go back to that trial balance report, which was the OBIE report reverse engineer. All right, now that we have all of that lineage documented, I'm gonna come back to the mapping specification. Again, come over to the target side. And when I find that trial balance summary report again, we can use this table level lineage again. Oops, sorry. Dual combine by project, and we're going to select the trial balance demo. All right, and so now we can see that the lineage has now been expanded from just that OBIE report to now include all of the lineage from the Informatica jobs that populated it. And the SIL layer would have produced more lineage forward as it was populating the tables that were used within these Informatica jobs. But now that we have this additional lineage, we can track further through that Informatica job to find out any business rules that were applied in order to report back to the business. All right, so again, if I come in and I select a specific table, we can see that metadata there, and I know that my period net is the column that we're interested in finding out what happened to. So when I load the lineage from this column level, we can see that I do have that same lineage from that report going in, but they did not identify any business roles at this point. So each of these hops. But then when we come past the OBIE mark, we can see that we are now using the HB OBIE mark table is being populated from an Informatica job. And this is that update strategy. So within this hop, there were no business rules applied. However, within the expression, there is a business rule. So this is what we're looking for. We want to document all of the business rules, all the transformations that are being applied to this column along the way. Now that we have this information, we have several different options to export this as a PDF, as an image, or even in a tabular format to Excel in order to provide to the business to have that conversation on what went wrong. All right, so now that we have all of this nice lineage ingested and harvested into the tool, we can now need to present that back to the business. So we also have the offering of the Business User Portal, as Sam mentioned. This is a read-only platform on top of the same repository of all that harvesting work, so that a user can come themselves and find out this information. So they can search through the metadata, what different environments have been scanned through. They can go to the mappings directly. All right, and we'll just do that trial balance. That's the project that I selected. And then for that mapping, it was a trial balance. Well, again, oops, sorry, wrong one. This is that OBIE report. So if I go directly to that report, I know as a business user, I have an issue with this report. I can search specifically for that mapping. So I see that mapping. And again, if I come down and I find the specific column that we were looking for, which is that period net column, it's going to pull up all that information, all that technical information that was scanned and harvested within the tool is now available in a read-only format for the business user. Similarly, from the column itself, I can produce that same lineage report that we saw within the DG platform within this business user portal, so that that user does not have to contact anybody. He can simply run the lineage reports and find out all those same business rules that were applied and maybe reduce the number of back and forth with the technical team. All right, again, at any point of this, we can go to the technical information and see that, yes, this is an analysis report. This is the BI layer. We're moving into that EDW and then back into the Informatica jobs. And these same type of exports, PDF, JPEG, and Excel are all available through the business user portal as well. Again, the impact analysis is also available through the business user portal. It's just, again, the exact same information, the same reports, just available in a read-only format. All right. So that concludes the presentation that I have prepared. So Robert, hand it back over to you to wrap up.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Sam. I'll just get my screen back up here. Hopefully you can see this. So there are several benefits that Erwin Enterprise Mapping Manager and the platform can provide. You obviously noted that Sam had discussed the many use cases but we wanted to focus on one specific use case so you can get an understanding of the power of the tool. So when we look at the benefits that the Enterprise Mapping Manager can provide, it can obviously greatly reduce the manual effort required to investigate these requirements. Without some type of automated solution, like Erwin's Enterprise Mapping Manager, time is taken away from other projects due to all hands on deck and the investigation of these issues that John had mentioned. There's the aforementioned offering clients can minimize the resources needed, reducing the manual effort, which results in a faster turnaround time. And obviously, there's a self-service for the business benefit as well. So Santel and Erwin are here to help organizations discover their enterprise data lineage. And if your organization has this type of use case or any of the other use cases mentioned, and you're interested in learning more about how we can help, you can contact Santel Consultants in a couple of different ways. One, you can schedule a one-on-one in-depth demonstration with Santel, where Santel will set up a call to discuss your specific use cases in regards to the Erwin Enterprise Mapping Manager and follow up with a demonstration of your use case. Or should you want to go further, you can actually schedule a call to do a proof of concept, a paid proof of concept, where Santel will set up a call to identify the success criteria and the use cases, leverage your examples, much as we did in the way that John took the OBIE and the Informatica information into the tool set, leveraging the mapping and metadata to scan and deliver a proof of concept to the data dictionary, manage mappings, and provide impact analysis, as well as a business view of the data lineage to a measured outcome. For either of those options, you can contact myself, Robert Letton, Santel Consultants, on the email there, or you can visit the website for more information. So with that, what we'd like to do is we still got everyone that stayed. So if anyone would like to ask any kind of questions, you can put your questions into the question on the bar there. We'll keep an eye out for that and see if we'll take any questions. And if not, we'll close this up. But we certainly want to open it up to any kind of questions that anyone may have. Granted, we wanted to just focus on this one use case, but while you can see the power of this tool, we wanted to make sure that it had a nice, straightforward flow. So I'll just wait a minute, give 30 seconds or so to see if there's any kind of questions that pop up. And obviously like to thank John and Sam for their input. This is a great acquisition to the Erwin portfolio of solutions. The whole Enterprise Mapping Manager framework plays very nice into the data governance framework, where Erwin has developed a whole host of offerings. And question is it possible to get a trial in order for a team to do a very small POC? That's an interesting question. What we like to do is we like to work with clients because obviously there's quite a lot in the tool set. So we like to kind of work with the client in hand to kind of go through a evaluation first of all to make sure that it meets the use case scenarios, and then we can decide how best to proceed. So what we'll do, Teresa, is we will actually follow up with you one-on-one and see how we can best get that option for you. And of course, if you've got something the smaller you want to do a small POC, you might be able to obviously give that to us, and we'll try and have a look at this. So we're more than happy to help you out on that. Just seeing if there's any other questions out there and John and Sam, any kind of thoughts you want to mention just before we go?
Yeah, Robert, I was going to offer, if we didn't get an opportunity to see the business glossary, and if you'd like, I can take just a few minutes and show how all of the stuff connects back to the business terms within the tool.
Sure, I'll pass that over to you. And if there's anyone else who got any other questions, please feel free to pop the question in the question and answer, and then we'll go back to that. So Sam, I'll pass control to you to have a look at the business glossary just quickly.
All right. So hopefully we're still seeing my monitor here. So I'm just going to jump in real quickly. As noted, we talked about these three base modules here, a little bit about automation. The glossary is multi-catalog. So it allows you to build multiple catalogs. It allows you to associate those catalogs with one another. We also have a place to manage your business policies, things like change of address, change of date of birth, your business rules, data quality rules, for example. Customer address should have a valid zip code. And then, of course, there's stewardship goals where you can publish, one of the things that we're looking to do to increase our maturity on the data governance maturity scale, right? Where are we starting? What are the milestones? So that as viewers are looking at things through the business user portal, they'll be able to understand where your advancements are being made. You can post announcements. For example, Lineage is now available for our Data Mart series. And then people can go explore that as new things come about, as the work that you're doing inside the tool continues to mature. You've got a place to publish those accomplishments and really let people know what's happening. Now, in these catalogs, again, I mentioned it's multimedia. So you've got the ability to create, for example, if customer had a picture, a sound file, a video, all of that could be captured here. Probably more convenient for a zookeeper than somebody dealing with customer data. But you've got customer here, the definition. If I go across, my data steward's picture would be here. I can show the catalog, and if there is a hierarchical arrangement of catalogs, that would be visible here as well. And then off to the right, I've got something called a mind map. The mind map, I'll show that in just a moment, is a collection of everything that has to do with customer, how we build the associations, relationship back to the steward. Then, of course, you've got the ability to export things out of the tool, and that includes business terms. And based on a person's role in the tool and their capabilities, they might be able to edit, delete, and of course, we keep a deep history for every term so that as it's going through the approval process and workflow, we can capture who approved it, when it was approved. If there's a change to a definition over time, we'll be able to see that as well. In the bottom left corner, you can see we've got a number of statuses that happen. And this basically, when we create a new term, we have what's called workflow on create, so that when we create a new term, that workflow automatically kicks off and routes to the appropriate places for approval before that term ends up being published and visible and getting a published term on the stat bar here. Now, if I click on this mind map, this is really powerful technology, not just for folks doing data work, but also perhaps more powerful for the people in the business to understand how a term relates to everything else in the architecture. So here we've got our data steward, Mike Boggs, the term customer. If I had a picture of customer, that would be here. You've got your associated business policies, and you can drill into that and see everything as it lines out. You've also got your associated business terms and associated technical metadata. Now, pulling this all together, because we're on a common framework and an underlying meta model, that becomes very easy and very easy for our data stewards to manage and publish out to the rest of the world. If we want to expand this out, we can expand it and see exactly where the term customer links in terms of our business terms and metadata. And if we want to drill into the metadata, we have that ability from this window as well. Simply clicking on address, we can pull up for the item address exactly where it's used as a source and target. Again, that impact summary, which renders a little slower on my laptop here. But all the statistics about address, including all the mappings that are included for the source and target, any indirect impacts, and of course, other impacts. There's a broad range here in terms of the number of lookups that are referenced. And I can pull that up and see, every lookup that's associated with it. So you're never going to wonder whether you got all the impacts. If everything is in the tool, it's going to find every last impact there is, and it's going to do it in a handful of seconds versus trying to cobble together all of your spreadsheets and build pivot tables. And then at the end of it, you're not really certain you found everything. So the power to know everything that you have in your environment, where it sits, how it's transformed, and how it travels the architecture, not only great for folks sitting in the IT space, but again, you've got this business user portal, and I'm just going to go into business terms here. John showed you a little bit of this earlier, and I'm going to filter on that same catalog, DGC. I'll pull that back, do a search. There's that term customer. And here, I have all the associated business terms, technical metadata, a little bit different view, but if we want to show that same mind map view, we have that capability as well. So they can see the exact same great information that we see inside the tool, again, without a license, coming through a URL that sits inside your firewall and accesses your environment, whether it's on the cloud or installed locally. All of this is available to them, and they have that same expansion feature there. Size that down a little bit so we can see everything a little more clearly. And then, of course, they have the ability to drill into the same things that we would drill into and see the mappings, the lineage view, impacts, and valid values. Really great value for somebody sitting in the business departments that want to learn more about the data. And again, you know, that shadow IT problem of people keeping things offline, maybe they're working with an old copy of your data warehouse, very dangerous. And this starts to diminish that effort, and it starts to, you know, when people see that everything's available and it's up to date, there's no need to maintain that access database anymore. I can find everything I need here. So you'll start to see an attrition happen for your shadow IT efforts that are going on within the business. You've also got a key column here, your sensitive data. All of that gets, once it's flagged and you have your proper SDI classification, which you can see in my demo, I don't have everything fully fleshed out. But I've got all my column names here, my descriptions, and if I'm developing a data extract, for example, or even if I'm taking in a data extract, I can understand the dangers associated with everything in there in terms of which columns are sensitive, whether it's PHI, account codes, social security numbers, all of that will be here and at the fingertips of the people who perhaps need to understand it most before they have any sort of a breach. And they have also got the ability to export this to Excel if they have questions or want to review it in the meeting. All of that, those features and functions come through this dashboard. There are developments for the dashboard coming that include a shopping cart. So if, for example, if I search on a given metadata term, it might tell me people who searched for employee key also searched for these elements, right? So you've got the ability to pull back. I don't think I typed the name correctly. We'll go with the dim employee table. You've got the ability to not only pull back the things you're looking for, but there will be intelligence behind it that tells you, hey, here are the most commonly associated business terms, metadata attributes, or what have you for whatever it is that you may be searching on. So the power to know and the power to further explore, all at the fingertips of everyone in the business, showcasing the hard work that goes into IT, showcasing the maturity level in your data management practices and your data governance initiatives, all in one simple package, very easy to implement and very easy to publish out to the rest of the world.
Thanks.
Any other questions come in, Robert?
Yeah, there are a couple of other questions that come in. The first one is, does the Enterprise Mapping Manager support mappings of SAS jobs or SAS jobs?
Absolutely. SAS, business objects, just about anything that you've got mappings to, including all the logic that you might load, for example, into an ERP system, a click view, a Tableau, all of that can be reverse engineered in a very similar way to what John showed and capture all of the logic that loaded that repository.
Great. And one last question, as far as reverse engineering, does this tool have any bridges for message brokers such as IIB from IBM?
John, that might be a question for you. I'm not familiar with that.
So we have worked with a few message brokers, the IIB one not in particular, but with the automation framework, we can interact with any tool that provides an SDK, is XML based, or has available APIs. CATs can be configured in order to sync bidirectionally with these tools.
Thank you, John.
Well, the short answer is yes.
Yeah, exactly. And just for our audience, this has been recorded. And so what we'll do is we will make sure that everyone of the attendees gets a copy of the recording. And just coming in at the last minute, last question before we kind of sign off, but can it reverse engineer Microsoft's Access UI to back-end SQL Server mappings? John, would you know that?
So we have done some similar things. The UI itself, it will not capture everything. However, it will capture the SQL statements that are used to populate the UI. So we can provide lineage to that Microsoft application. It's just going to be in a little bit different format. It's going to parse the SQL statements on the back end rather than the UI itself.
Excellent. And as I say, this is being recorded. We'll send a link out to everyone that attended, and we'd like to thank you all for attending our webcast. It's been a pleasure to present our views on how to automate the discovery of your multi-platform ETL environment for Data Lineage. And we look forward to being in touch with you in the near future. And with that, we'll sign off. Sam and John, thank you very much indeed, and I'll be in touch soon.
You're very welcome. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.